everyone, I'm Gina Mazzetti, and I'm here with Garett Thomas, indie filmmaker and overall movie junkie with Talking Movies. So Garett, I know you're so excited today about talking about the Oscars, kind of recapping about the Golden Globes. So I kind of wanted to start with that, the Golden Globes. There's a huge controversy going on.
Yes.
And why don't you start us off with this hashtag?
Yeah, there's this Twitter hashtag going around lately, and it's called Oscars So White, and it's really infuriated a lot of celebrities. Even such people as Spike Lee and Jada Pinkett Smith are going so far as to potentially boycott the Academy Awards.
Yes, I was watching Good Morning America, and I heard Robin Roberts talk with Will Smith about it.
Yeah.
And he was basically saying that, you know, diversity is a superhero for America. Yeah. And for us not having that in Hollywood is such a shame, and they're just not going to attend.
Right. And, you know, even Selma star from last year, David Oyelowo, has backlashed against the Academy as well, where he's called it unfathomable. And so Academy President Cheryl Boone Isaacs has actually put out an official statement about it to try to not so much apologize per se, but just to try to put out that they recognize what's going on and they're going to try to do something more progressive in hopes of amending people's frustrations about it. And it looks like they might even try to do something for future years where they might even make more nominations available for not just actors, but possibly other crew members as well, because this is the second year in a row where not a single actor of color was recognized. Now, I am of many opinions of this. It's a very sensitive topic.
Sure.
But, you know, I do think that everybody needs a chance to get nominated. And I also think that, you know, talent needs to be recognized by itself. So, you know, on the one side of the spectrum, you have people that think, you know, there needs to be, you know, everybody should be able to be having an equal chance, which is, you know, very good.
Yeah, rightfully so.
You don't want it to be something where, you know, you have making sure you're looking at this group and then that group and then that group and make sure everybody's getting an equal chance because of that reason as well. You just want it to be just talent.
Purely talent.
So my belief is that, you know, it's not about the actors themselves that this is the reason. Instead, I'm kind of thinking that it's more about the top dog, the producers, the companies themselves.
Of course.
The
people behind the scenes.
For the money for all of the movies that are getting produced. So it's not the talent. The talent is doing great, but what are the roles being offered to them to begin with? So when you have, you know, companies that might be able to pay for 10 movies a year, and then there are only so many movies they're willing to produce, why are they only giving them to the actors that are maybe white? You know, they need to be able to offer more noble roles to actors of color.
Well, speaking of that, so looking toward the awards that will be next month, the Academy Awards, what were the 8 films nominated for Best Picture?
Sure. In no particular order. They are The Revenant, Mad Max Fury Road, Spotlight, The Big Short, The Martian, Bridge of Spies, Room, and Brooklyn.
And what is your favorite out of all of those?
Oh, gosh. Well, I've only seen 5 of the 8 so far.
Only 5?
Only 5. I know everyone's already seen all 8 so far.
I'm sure you are ahead.
Right now, I think my favorite of the ones I've seen is probably Spotlight. I was really affected by how much they delved into the news business, because what they were doing in that movie was really looking into a recent current event of uncovering the Boston event of how many priests needed to be exposed in the Catholic Church.
Okay.
And I think there were almost like 90-something priests that needed to be uncovered, and there was all this like hush-hush motion about it. And so I believe it was the Boston Globe that did that.
Now, this is your favorite one. Do you think this is going to have a chance of winning?
It has a good shot. And there were various statistics that I was looking into for why certain films have a chance.
I love how into it you are with your stats.
Oh yeah, I get totally into this, and I'm sure if you
cool.
watched this show before, you'll know that. So there were 3 specific categories for films that I utilize here. So those categories were picture, editing, and screenplay.
And so you're at home, are you writing this down?
I was. I've done this for years. I watched the Oscar nominations live at like 5:30 in the morning.
Set your alarm
like
clock?
a diehard, yeah. Even though you can watch them on YouTube at whatever time on demand.
But you wanted to know right when it was happening.
Yeah. And so there are only 2 movies out of every single film nominated this year that fit that category. And so that's Spotlight, which has picture, editing, and screenplay original, and then The Big Short, that has picture, editing, and screenplay
Okay,
adapted.
so knowing that, who do you want to win Best Actor and Actress? Are they in these movies?
No, not quite.
Okay.
But the other reasons that movies might win Best Picture, if not for those, would be the number of nominations total, which do not work for any of those movies. So The Revenant is the most nominations with 12.
Wow. And that's unusual, or is that normal?
Some movies get 12. Sometimes they even get more than that. So the most nominations any film has ever gotten is 14.
Okay.
And that went to such, that's actually been to multiple movies. That's been like Titanic. I believe Ben-Hur's also had that. I'll have to double check that one, but that was a while ago. I did not exist at that point. But yeah, I think the second movie this year that was the next number of nominations total was Mad Max: Fury Road, and that also was very enjoyable. There's a lot of good stuff to see out there.
Now, do you think the Academy overlooked any of the films this year? We know they overlooked people, but what about the films?
Yes, although there was a good amount of indigenous people in the movie The Revenant. And so for that very reason, Leonardo DiCaprio gave a standout performance this year in The Revenant. So if you get a chance to see that, I really recommend that. The movie's, it's 2.5 hours, but I definitely think it re-earns better status to people who may or may not like Birdman.
Right.
I was not the biggest fan of it last year. I preferred Boyhood so much more, but I think it was more of a one big, long theatrical take that may or may not have floated your boat. Didn't quite float my boat, but I think I liked Boyhood a lot better just because it took so long to make. They took a whole 12-year-long vision of it and realized it.
Okay, so in this new age of television, why do you think any of this still matters, these awards and things like that?
Oh, goodness. Well, I think one of the things I like the most about the awards, just for starters, is that anytime they can recognize any new, unusual formats that can be utilized to help tell a good story. So whether they be something like Richard Linklater's 12-year-long vision, or even the new methods of visual effects that they've used in such things as Gravity or Interstellar, where they're inventing the new methods.
Huge effects.
Or even doing something like the little independent film last year called Tangerine, where they filmed the whole darn thing on an iPhone 5S.
Isn't that crazy?
And then it still got all the national recognition that it got.
Wow.
I think all of those are unusual methods that
Do you
that
like
deserve,
these methods, even though they are unusual?
Yeah, I do.
Probably good and bad?
I definitely start using the iPhone. I think these days, if you're not using an Android or an iPhone to film something,
Sure.
You need to get with the program. But I think...
Keep up with the pace.
Yeah, you got to. Yeah, I think once you have started doing that, and then everyone starts doing it, it's no longer unusual anymore. So then there has to be something else
the
out
norm.
there. So yeah, it's become the norm, exactly.
Can I ask you how you got into television?
Oh goodness. Well, I've been doing photography and video stuff since well, I would call them ancient times, but I've basically been doing any sort of photography and video stuff since at least the 3rd grade. When I was in that age bracket, I had this little ball of a camera for my computer. It was still black and white, even though it was digital.
Yeah.
But it was called a quick cam, and so we'd have that hooked up to my family's computer, and you could take either little, maybe 10 frames a second video
Was the quick
clips.
cam given as a gift to you, or did you ask for it?
It was for the whole family, so it
Okay.
wasn't mine specifically. But I would use that with my sister, who's 4 years younger than me. Hello,
Oh.
Chelsea. And we would use that with the program Claris Works. So I would take these still images. And so whether it be with like my toy dinosaurs or something like that, I would take like pictures out of like normal sizes. So like we might take like a picture of a hand, and then to take like a picture of myself and my sister in full size.
Very
and
cool.
I'd erase the background, so I'd make us look like we're sitting in a hand. So I'd actually try to create a company that never really existed in the first place. But
Right.
it'd be called Fool Your Friends with Funny Photos. And it never was quite realized, but I had so much fun doing that.
But you continue with your passion, and now you're here.
Yeah, and so it eventually led to this. I was making a lot of independent movies as a kid. I was a 2-time national finalist in the National Children's Film Festival. Then I went to CSU Monterey Bay. My major was teledramatic arts and technology, which is just a basic, big, huge word for filmmaking, but they made up their own word. But I had so much fun there, and what was great there is they had a small amount of students in undergraduates, relatively speaking, at about maybe 4,000 at the time. So what was nice about that versus a bigger school that has maybe 30,000 undergrads was that you got to have a lot more hands-on time with the equipment.
Oh, of course. And you need that in that kind of major.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one thing to be reading the textbook a lot, but it's so much better if you can have the hands-on experience time. So I also got to show 1 or 2 movies at the Independent Film Theater there in downtown Monterey. And now I've made over 60 independent films, and one of them's even been shown at the Castro Theater up
Oh,
there.
that's awesome.
So it's what my passion is.
Very cool. Good for you for, exercising that passion.
Thank you.
So my next question is, what would you like the awards next year to spotlight more on?
Oh, goodness. Well, I do know that there are a lot of works that are, still really focusing on making a lot of money on various sequels and triquels and remakes and whatnot. And I actually would like to see a lot less of that. Just because I'm asking, where's the originality? However, I do like the idea that there's a lot more looking into superhero movies. And
Okay.
so this year alone, I know that there's a lot, I think there's like 10 plus movies that are lined up to make like superhero movies.
That many?
I think that's like just a recent thing. Like I know there's been more and more in the past few years, if not the past 5 years, and so many people like it. And it's also even kind of starting to appeal to the LGBT community because now they're actually having LGBT superheroes. So I like where that's headed. So it's not
More
necessarily
inclusive.
retread. Yeah. So, I'd have to really start thinking about what I want to see more of, just so long as they're not, repeating more of the same. Like again, it goes along with the idea of having more unusual and not just the norm.
Yeah, don't copy people and
Right.
just get more original and
Yeah.
more creative.
I also like the idea of having more 3D movies that truly utilize 3D for what it was meant to be. So like if you take the film Gravity that Alfonso Cuarón made, I think that was probably one of the best 3D films that was ever made, because
right.
if you weren't watching that in IMAX 3D, then you really weren't seeing it. If you even tried to watch that on an iPhone, how dare you? But
Are you always at the movie theaters? Where do you watch all of these?
well, actually, there was a theater that just opened very close to where I live. If you ever go to San Francisco, there's a theater that opened maybe a few months back called Alamo Drafthouse Cinema. And when I went in there, I was wondering, well, where did you get the popcorn? Where did you get the drinks? And they're like, oh, we don't have that. There's not like a booth for that. And so I was like, okay.
So not your traditional kind of movie theater.
But then I went to sit down, and then I saw there were these little tables for every 2 chairs. And so I suddenly realized, oh, they come to you. And
so a table like this?
Yeah, a little bit smaller, but it's like this little black table for every 2 chairs. And there's this whole menu, it's like multi-pages, and you can get popcorn or full-blown meals. You can get the chicken wings.
Is there a
Brussels
menu?
sprouts,
Do they tell you the specials?
Yeah, there's. Well, I don't know if there's specials or if it's just like a standard menu, but it's so many pages, and yeah, you can get everything. And so there's this little piece of paper and a pen for every 2 people.
Do you remember what you ordered?
The things I'm allowed to say are popcorn that was dusted in kimchi, and I think I got like deviled eggs as well. They had like smoked salmon.
And were you there in the morning?
No, it wasn't in the morning. But you can probably be there by like the afternoon. I know that's how I saw The Revenant earlier this week.
That is so cool.
So and it's being a movie theater in San Francisco, it's open late. So
you've spent some time there then, catching up on all these films.
I saw at least 2 of the films for the nominees there this year so far.
Wow.
And I probably will see some more there. And I've also seen a few, I actually saw one of the animated films up for Best Animated Feature, Inside Out from Pixar, on demand on Comcast.
How did you like that one?
I actually was really happy with it. It was the basic premise is that it personified basic emotions within people. So you actually see a realization of joy, sadness, I think it was confusion, and then there were 2 more. Anger was another one, and the various shapes of each of these characters was amusing, to say the least. But they all kind of exist within this like almost factory. And how they interact, and then depending on how this person is more or less displaying these emotions,
right,
and who's kind of controlling this like emotion board at the time, is fascinating and funny. And then it also kind of shows you how relevant each of the emotions is in this kid's life. And then when something stirs it all up, then certain emotions can't be used for a little while. And then
I would imagine it'd be kind of cool and interesting to have a young person watch that film.
Yeah.
Just to identify different emotions and see what triggers from them.
Yeah, so it really made it relevant how important each of these emotions are. And I know some people might not like sadness, for instance, for a while, or anger for a while, but it made each of them seem very relevant and important. So,
yeah, we all go through it.
I know I still really wanted to see Anomalisa because it was created in part by Charlie Kaufman, who I've always been a fan of ever since being John Malkovich. But I wish that it had more than just 1 nomination, but I was glad it at least got that. But yeah, I'm yet to see that. The movie I was kind of disappointed didn't get an animation nomination was the Peanuts movie. But I did enjoy that thoroughly because whenever they're trying to turn a movie from the 2D world that it's very well known for, with Charles Schultz behind it, who is no longer with us, of course, into a 3D movie, you're always kind of thinking, well, gee, they're going to ruin the hell out of it. But they actually did a very good job.
It wasn't too bad.
It wasn't too bad. I wouldn't even say that. It was good.
It was great.
And I think that was in part due to the fact that some of the producers themselves were the son and the grandson of Charles Schultz. And they also used all unknown actors, just like they did with the 60s cartoon versions of it. And they still used Vince Guaraldi music. So it was good. And Snoopy's all there too, and Woodstock. So. And
do you have a favorite movie overall, not including the Oscars?
Yes.
What is it? Would love to know about this, because you seem like you really know your stuff.
Of course. Yeah, I would say without a doubt, it's Ex Machina. If you haven't seen it, drop everything and leave now. That one is. It's a sci-fi mind bender, and
sci-fi mind bender.
Yes.
What does that even mean?
It's like to try to summarize, if that's even possible. It's where this young kid, young adult kid, goes into this house by invitation. He's actually, I believe he's flown there by helicopter for some sort of job. And that kid is played by Domhnall Gleeson, who a lot of people might recognize from the late Harry Potter films, not to mention The Revenant. He's been popping up everywhere lately. And the person he meets is someone who was in the movie Drive. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he interacts with Alicia Vikander, who just was also nominated for The Danish Girl, but she's not a person. She's a robot. And their interactions
How interesting.
Are odd because he starts to love this robot.
Falls in love with the robot.
And I can't say too much more because I would probably give something away.
Yeah, let's not give it away.
But you actually start to believe, well, is she a person? Is she not a person? And so...
Sounds mind-boggling.
The various things that she or it does are more and more mind-twisting, and I just really recommend seeing that. I think it was the first movie that this screenwriter has actually directed himself, and so he got a nomination for that. It got nominated for Best Visual Effects as well.
That's got to be exciting.
And I wish that Alicia Vikander had also gotten a nomination for this as well, beyond just for The Danish Girl. So I'm at least glad she got a recognition for something, because she obviously is going to go far. So it's number one, unquestionably.
Well, Garett, thank you so much for sharing this with us today.
Okay.
I mean, that's very interesting, and I hope you guys enjoyed our time on Talking Movies. And stay tuned for next month when we do have the Oscars.
Yep.
Thanks so much.